Welcome, everyone, YouTube land and Facebook land. Welcome, GAAQ parents and students, to our virtual town hall meeting with Mr. Mark Lentz, our head of school, and myself, Justin Tyler, the parent relations executive at the school. So today we're going to discuss a lot of things. All right, there's a lot of things to discuss with you in traditional town hall meeting fashion. There's an address, right, by the leader or leaders of a community. And then once the address is done, this gives a lot of time for feedback and questions, comments, opinions to be, fielded at the end of the presentation or the end of the discussion or speech. And so this is what we're going to do today as well. So we're going to really ask for you to write, in YouTube chat and also in your Facebook comments, write down your questions that you have as Mr. Mark is speaking, or you might already have questions prepared, based on my email that I sent out to you. So we want you to put that in the chat, in YouTube chat or the Facebook comments. And at the end of Mr. Mark's discussion, then we'll go back and we'll address them together, and to answer as many questions as we can. So we hope to have a full house. And in terms of the housekeeping, share this right now with your family, friends that are here at GAAQ. Share this link to them, either on YouTube or Facebook. Have them get on and check out what we're talking about, because this is going to be a monumental discussion, because we're very excited about making next year the biggest year yet at GAAQ. So share this now. Also, make sure that you like this live stream. It doesn't take much to like it, so just press the like button, just so the algorithm can share it, show the good things that we're doing. And then other than that, just listen. Just use your two ears. My mom said you always have two ears and one mouth for a reason. You want to listen more than you talk. And so today, let's listen more than we talk, because there's going to be a lot of good things to be discussed. And so before we go ahead, I'll introduce myself, and before we give it over to our leader of the school. So my name is Mr. Justin Hamza Tyler. I'm your parent relations executive here at Jim's American Academy. Been here with the school for over 4 years now, going into year 5, later on in the year. And I'm basically like the representation of customer service at the school. If you don't know where to go, I can help guide you. Either I can directly answer the question, or I can help, guide you to the department that can help. And if you don't hear from someone, I can be your advocate to make sure that you will hear from that person and that you will get that question answered. In addition, I do a little bit of social media at the school, a little bit of PR, a little bit of marketing communications, and I just help out, project based. That's kind of who I am. So I'm a little bit of everything at the school, but I'm your advocate, because name parent is actually in my title, right? So I advocate on behalf of you, and I make sure that your views are addressed and heard at the highest levels, whether it's Jim's education or whether it's Jim's American Academy leadership, right? They're going to be addressed. So that's a little bit about me. So I'm going to hand it over now so our fearless leader, Mr. Mark Lentz, can introduce himself properly and then go into what his discussion points are for today. So Mr. Mark, can you go ahead and introduce yourself to our community?
Yeah, happy to do so. Thank you, Justin. Welcome everybody who is viewing live or who decides to view this recorded. Because we've done a bunch of these over the last couple of years, I will keep my introduction short, because I'm hoping many of the viewers already know who I am. But as Mr. Tyler said, I am the head of school and CEO of GEMS American Academy and the country director for GEMS education in general in Qatar, and in such, to some extent, oversee our sister school, WSQ. I have been with GEMS and GAAQ. This is my 6th year now, which is hard to believe. I still sometimes feel like the new guy. But yeah, I've been with us 6 of our 9 years, and really proud of what we've accomplished, and happy and honored to be your head of school. Today's a little bit of a hodgepodge. It's a lot of different topics. We want to talk about sort of what's happening between now and the end of this school year, and then let you know what we're anticipating, expecting, and planning for next year, and hopefully in that process maybe generate some excitement, because we're excited. So it's going to include for this year things like re-enrollment and graduation, and then for next year talk about things like bringing back PTA, ASAs, school sports teams, and then some changes we're looking at doing to improve upon what we've been doing. So I know Mr. Tyler will have some prompts for all those things. And then, like you said, at the end, if our ideas have generated any questions, we'll be here to answer those questions. So Justin, you wanna start with our topics?
Yeah, so I'll start. Like you said, it's a little bit of a hodgepodge. We might jump around a little bit, but we want to address some of the major things, and then we want to lean on our parents. If we forgot something, let us know. Even students who are maybe on the live stream today as well. So let's start off with this, Mr. Mark. I'm gonna put it on the screen here. The current status of the school. Where are we right now? We had the NEASC accreditation. We got all these different, acknowledgments, accreditations. We're getting new ones as we speak, right? With National Honor Society and other things like that. So let's talk about where we are right now before we go into where we're headed for next school year.
Yep. Those of you have maybe heard me say this before, because I've been asked this question before, but I'm a history teacher by trade, history and psychology. So if I think of the history, when I got here, I had sort of the perfect situation, maybe, if you will, as a head of school. Heads of school always talk about you tend to have one or two roles. You're going into a head of school that's really well established, has a long history, and your job is, the new guy, is really to try and come in, not shake too much up, learn the lay of the land, sit back, feel things out, and then generate sort of slow changes from within as an organization. Or you're starting a school from scratch, in which case you don't have the luxury of doing any of that, right? You got to build everything from scratch. And I kind of landed right in the sweet spot. We'd been open for 3 years. We had a great school. We had great facilities. We had great kids. We had great teachers. We had really happy parents. Things were really clicking, but we didn't have a lot of long-term plans and visions, and we were really still in our infancy. So I was really lucky to come to a school. If you were here, if you've been with us that whole time, you'll remember I did a simple things called a start, stop, continue. Ask our teachers, our parents, and our students, if you were in my position, what things do we not have that you would start? What things are we doing right now that aren't working that you would want us to stop? And what's going just perfectly that you want to make sure we continue? From that, we built our first strategic plan. Part of that was the NEASC accreditation that you talked about, Justin. And we just hammered that one out. That's usually a 2-year process. We did it in less than a year and a half. And there's multiple levels of accreditation, and the first time getting accredited as an organization, you're hoping to be somewhere in the middle. I don't honestly, say it in a bragging way, but I don't know of other schools that have applied the first time and just gotten that absolute top level. So patting all of us on the back, because many of you were a part of that journey with me. We got the best accreditation you can have. Essentially, you guys are doing great. Looking forward to see you again in 5 years. So yeah, I mean, it's just been a great ride, and then wham, COVID hits, right? So it was sort of a funny joke that year. We had come up with a new slogan for our administrative team and for our teachers. We said, we're one team with one purpose. And part of the goal was as a group, as teachers, to figure out what's our real purpose this year. And that was 2 years ago. And the sort of joke became one team with one purpose, and the purpose is to survive the year. And I think that was the case for many of us. So in terms of, that brings us to your idea of status now. I'd like to think we adapted well during COVID. Parent feedback and student feedback has certainly indicated that we did. We weren't perfect. It was new for us the same way as it was for you guys. We made some mistakes, but I think we adapted to those mistakes, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished as a group. And it's exciting to feel things normalizing. Things aren't normal. They're not the same. There's baby steps. We got water coolers back this week. Eid's over, and hey, man, not only can we drink water in public, but our water coolers are open. We haven't had that for 2 years. We had sports teams going out all week. We had sports teams going all over the place this week. We haven't had that in 2 years. So, things aren't exactly the same. I'm not required to have the big camera up in front of the school that takes your temperature, but I figure it can't hurt, right? There are still COVID cases out there. So I'm in a unique position that I'm allowed to sort of remove some of these rules and regulations as the rules and regulations change. But if I see one that's not really changing the educational impact at all, but I think is still maintaining or helping the safety of your kids, helping to stop COVID spread, then why not keep those? We may or may not have that camera there next year. I don't know. We'll see what's going on with COVID. But right now that we've got such a dialed system at the beginning of the day, it doesn't slow anything down. So yeah, I think we're in great shape, and we're really excited about what's ahead. Really excited. So hopefully that answers the question, Justin.
Yeah, I think so. The other thing I was going to say, just as a matter of providing context, right? Just how hard is it to plan so fluidly different plans, each time? Because there's been different iterations of what normal looks like, of what returning to normal looks like. So are we in a stage now where we still have iterations of plans? Are we almost there where we kind of have one plan and we're banking on that? Where are we at now as a school in terms of our planning and execution of that?
I appreciate that question. Some of our parents have asked me about that. It's really changed my job, and the job of any educational administrator, probably not just education, probably most jobs. But luckily when COVID hit, I think one of the reasons we were so successful is we were watching the trends in the different countries as what was in terms of what was happening. Because we're part of the GEM's larger network, I had access to heads of schools. I was in contact with the head of school in GEMS in Singapore, who had already gone into lockdown 2 weeks prior. And so I could learn from what they were experiencing. So I was about a week into creating our COVID plan in case, it's just a backup plan. When whap, we got told on that Tuesday we were off on Wednesday. But unlike some schools, I already had a plan that was almost finished. But that was one plan, right? And then we came back thinking we knew what was going on that first summer, and I had a plan. Knocked out of the water, man. Everything I thought was going to happen didn't. So we had to completely throw that plan away and start from scratch when my team landed in August. So the following summer, I said, look, I don't know if we're going to be fully online, if we're going to be blended, if we are going to be 30% capacity on campus, 50% capacity on campus, or if COVID's over and we're 100% on campus. So we're not going to have a plan. We're going to have a plan for every single possible contingency we can think of. We didn't have one orientation. I had 5. I didn't have one school plan. I had 5. That was a weird way to start this year, but we were set and ready to go for, I think, pretty much anything they could have thrown at us. And it's maybe a good segue. We were going to talk graduation. Maybe I'm doing them out of order, but
No,
you got a graduation.
Graduation
is one of our topics. It's going to pop up on here. And if you're asking me about planning, I'm a part of the graduation committee, but I really try and take a back seat, right? And let the kids have input into that. Let the teachers who've been here for a while, student council has a lot of input. But I mean, we had a fully online plan, right? We got back in January, things went fully online. So we had to go back and have a fully online graduation plan. We were really hoping that didn't happen. Last year, if you remember, we didn't have it fully online. We managed to bring some parents in. I think we're the only school in the country. Again, maybe I'm bragging. Sorry, folks, if I am, but we wanted you to have that experience, right? Where you spend your whole life waiting for that moment where your kid walks across the stage. So we had a televised, because we weren't allowed to have parents on campus during the school day. So we had a televised graduation where the kids went across the stage, but you couldn't be here for that. So then we set individual by appointment, every single graduate and every single kid that came after school whenever they wanted, and they had their own private graduation where that one kid walked down to the graduation stage. Mom and dad had their own private seats and their own cameraman, and they had a graduation. I don't know anybody else who did that, but and I can't take credit. That wasn't solely my idea, but I thought it was cool. So we had that plan set up. We had our fully online plan. We had that plan set up again. Then, hey, parents were allowed back on campus. Well, maybe we don't make it big. Maybe we don't make a big venue out of it. Maybe we just make it small, put it in our gym, have the kids, just their parents, right? That was one plan. And we just kept making plans. And as of now, we have been told we can have graduation. We have to submit approval. I have submitted approval. I'm waiting on that approval. As of this week, we were struggling to get a venue because everybody's struggling to have a graduation now that they think they can. And venues were booking out. So if you tried to see me on Thursday, you couldn't, because I said, look, I got to lock this down. I'm not letting anybody else do this. I need somebody who has the ability to pick a venue, negotiate the price, and sign the contract all in the same day. The only person I could think of that could do that was me. So I looked at 5 different venues on Thursday, and I am happy to say we booked an amazing hall. I think it's called the Giovanni Hall at the Radisson Blu. And not only are we able to have a quote unquote normal graduation and have parents and have kids and have teachers, but we can even have families invite some guests for the first time. So I'm pretty stoked about this upcoming graduation.
Definitely. Should I drop the dates, times?
Yeah, hit them. Go for it.
I'm quizzing my own self, right? So it's going to be on Thursday, June 2nd, 2022, at the Radisson Blu Hotel Doha. Okay. The start time will be 6 p.m. And we're going to allow students to have their own ticket, but they have to attend the graduation rehearsal, right, to receive all their tickets. Okay. So students will have a complimentary ticket, and there will be, ticket obviously for mom and dad, plus 2 other additional tickets. So you're really looking at 1 student ticket and then 4 additional family tickets. That'll be given to you complimentary. Anything outside of that, you would have to go email or contact Mr. Gregory for any additional tickets at that time. Okay. But that is the basis of everything. The graduation rehearsal will be emailed soon, that information. Okay. So be on the lookout for that. But we are very excited because this has been a long time. I think since the class of our first graduating class, since the class of 2019, since we've been in person. Right. So it's monumental for us.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know how Mark does this. He'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So he'll already talked about one thing, and now we're talking about a graduation. So I'll take that off the list. All right. So the next thing I want to discuss is where we are now with sports, field trips, after school clubs, or extracurricular activities. Now, anyone who has been here before pandemic understands just how busy our school was with sports, with field trips, with after school activities. SFQ and other external, partners were here as well. And obviously with the pandemic, things came to a screeching halt. And then a little bit before Ramadan started, we were allowed to actually have these things again, right? At a smaller capacity, but we were allowed to do that. But, obviously in respect to the holy month of Ramadan, we did not. And now we're outside of that, and we experienced Eid, and now we're past that. Where are we now, Mark, with the sports, the field trips after schools? Are we full on, or are we waiting till next year, or are we getting approval still? Talk to the people.
No, we're in the process, man. We had teachers submitting field trip requests again this week, and it takes 2 weeks. We got 5 weeks of school left, and it takes 2 weeks to get them approved by the MOE. So I'm telling teachers this week, like, if I don't have it submitted by Thursday, right, that's our deadline. But we're still coming up with field trip proposals. I think the teachers are just excited to give the kids a chance they haven't had in ages. And I've had so many sports trips this week, I can't keep track of it. Even not just as a head of school, as a parent. My daughter told us last evening at 8:00 last night, hey, if I'm going to be in the basketball competition, I need a passport photo. So I went digging around the house and couldn't find any passport photos and had to go get her a passport photo at 8:00 at night. So yeah, there's a ton of sports trips. I think we have had 3 teams out today at competitions. And I think there's one almost every day this week at least. So really, really exciting stuff. And we're really excited to bring back those ASAs next year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think the thing I want to discuss, because there's some families here who were not here during or before the pandemic, right? They came during and then some after, right? Now, the thing that you have to look at is that we we had different sports teams like netball, basketball, football. We did track and field. We did badminton, volleyball. Those are the main sports that we had. Typically, the sports teams and sports competitions started typically in grade one. You started seeing grade one kids go out to different tournaments. Not saying that it was at the level of a high school student, right? But they did have their own tournaments because we were in two different major sports leagues in Qatar. So there's a lot to do. The other thing is with the field trips, we were going to field trips a ton. And now we're starting to see that same energy coming back. Now there's so many things that I've signed, Mr. Mark has signed in terms of field trip approvals that have to go to the ministry. My hand is so tired because of it, right? And then and then after school activities, wow. I mean, ASAs, I think at our peak, we had 61 ASAs that were offered between lower school and upper school. And so the ASA started in KG2 and they went all the way to grade 12. And we allow students to have 2 days a week maximum that they can experience ASAs or after school clubs. You could do 1 day, you could do 0 days, it's up to you. But the thing is, there are no cost, right? You're just able to extend your day if you wanted to, right? Doesn't cost you anything extra. Now, we did have external providers before the pandemic that also had their brand of sports as well that did cost the price. But we offer something just from us that didn't cost anything. And we were looking to do the same thing for next school year as well. So it looks like things are normalizing in that area. But I wanted to let the parents know who weren't here before the pandemic that this is one of the bedrocks of our school. And one of the reasons why people always said this is a great place to be a student, because there was so much going on in this area as well outside of the classroom. So, all right. I think we're good on that topic. So I do want to go to another topic that I believe everyone's looking forward to, and that might take a little bit more of your expertise to talk to us about. So let's talk about the academic approach. So I'm going to put this on the screen. So what do I mean by that? Now, one thing that people may not have quickly have noticed is that when we had the COVID really rock what we did as a school, like really impacted it severely, people didn't understand that there are some students who never went to school yet that started school online. So a lot of the life skills that we would teach in the school and a lot of the socialization that students would have was gone. If you're a single child at home, you were socializing with who? Adults, right? A TV screen, right? So, and then there were other kids who academically they suffered because the online as the only option wasn't the best option. So grade levels are now, maybe they were 1 grade level behind, now it's 2. Maybe there were no grade levels behind, now there's 1 grade level behind, right? So there are a lot of implications for academics. So Mark, I want you to talk about how we addressed some of these grade levels going down or some of the socialization of the kids and some of the life skills and support. How did we address these deficiencies and where are we in terms of a foundation to move forward into the next school year academically?
It's I just talked to a potential new math teacher that I was interviewing today about this exact topic. He's a Canadian guy, but he's worked in the British system. He hasn't worked in the American system. And we were discussing that the Canadian system typically is a little more similar to the American system. And if I sort of thought of them as a continuum, if the British system is on this side in terms of being regimented, the Canadians are probably here, and then the Americans are a little half a step this side in terms of flexibility in our curriculum. We were talking about how that impacts COVID. Our flexibility in our curriculum allows us to adapt quicker than you could in a more regimented curriculum. In a really regimented curriculum, you've got those milestones you have to hit. And if your kids aren't there, too bad. What are you going to do about that? Obviously, I'm not implying that they don't have the same concern or effort to try and close those academic gaps, but it allows us a little bit more flexibility in what we're teaching and how we're teaching it. And so we've really been focusing on that. And I was at a PD, now that things have finally opened up again, I was at a really amazing PD conference that McGraw-Hill put on about the current status of intervention and what's the word, distribution of student ability, disparity in student ability pre and post COVID. And it's really striking information. A lot of it was based on studies in the United States. but they did have an international spin. And, you know, in the international school circuit, we have a slightly wider ability range typically in our classes than you might get in a classroom within their own country. Because typically, and you go to a public school in America, all those kids have grown up in that same American public school system. In my school, you have kids, which is part of our strength, that diversity. I have kids from over 77, I think is the number I heard last, different nationalities. And so we have all kinds of different ability levels. Some kids aren't as good at this, but they're better at that, and vice versa. But when we look at that MAP test that you always hear us talking about, stands for Measurement of Academic Performance. That's our base. It gives us it's an external test. You can't study for it. You can't prepare for it. It is literally a measurement of your academic performance. Where are you at? And it's a self-fluctuating test. The kids take it online. If you get one answer right, then they give you a harder one. If you get that one right, they give you a harder one. If you miss a question, they give you an easier one. And it keeps adapting so that every kid is succeeding as they take the test, but at their own level. And in the end, it will spit out this kid's at blank level. They're at a 4th grade level or a 5th grade level or a 12th grade level. And it is not uncommon pre-COVID to have a pretty good bell curve. If I'm in a 3rd grade classroom, most of my kids are at a 3rd grade level. A couple of them are at a 2nd. A couple of them are at a 4th. You'll have 1 or 2 at a 1st, and you'll have 1 or 2 at a 5th. That's really stretching a teacher. Studies have shown that your average teacher can differentiate easily 1 grade level below or 1 grade level above. It takes a real expert teacher to differentiate their instruction 2 grade levels below or 2 grade levels above. Much more than that, and it's typically not possible for a teacher in their own classroom, according to current studies. And COVID blew that out of the water. It is not uncommon now to have kids 2 grade levels below, 3 grade levels below, or 4 grade levels below. Not just at my school, every school in the world. And studies in the United States have shown that kids who do not catch up in their reading level by the end of 3rd or 4th grade, if they're still more than 2 grade levels behind by the end of 3rd or 4th grade, they typically don't graduate high school. It's a pretty startling study. At our school like ours, that's not likely to happen. But it's because the shortest answer, you said, that was a long-winded answer so far. Sorry, guys. But it's to explain the sort of crisis that not just our school's at, that the world's at. And the reason why we're doing something really different next year. We've hired an intervention coordinator. Her job will be we're unifying our upper school and our lower school student support team. The student support coordinator is the head of that department. We've had that department before, but they're integrated into their regular grade levels. Now we're unifying them as a department. We've hired a head of that department, and we've added another body into that department. So in terms of like put your money where your mouth is as a school, I'm putting 2 more teachers into that department than we've ever had, because I recognize this needs to be addressed. That student support team's job is to help our teachers figure out how to do that extreme differentiation through a mix of pushing into their classrooms and pulling the really low kids or the really high kids out, so that we address also those gifted and talented needs, and to make sure that every kid in our school is being met where they're at. So that high kid is still being challenged, and that low kid is closing that gap to get them on grade level as quickly as possible. And again, at the risk of patting ourselves on the back, I don't know any other school that has that many staff dedicated to that current crisis that we're in. Our job is to make sure that your kid gets caught up on grade level, challenged and above grade level. You pay a lot of money to get the best education in the world, and that's our job to provide that for you.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that question, Mark. Like, how are we solving that? How are we trying to solve that, right? So thank you for answering that question. And I just think that it's important for our parents to understand that, because sometimes when you're busy working and everything, it's like, well, what are we really doing for, my child or other children in the class? And I really feel like the more that you meet the needs of the children, the more that you'll have less distractions. Well, that's an oxymoron, but the less distractions you may have in the class, because the students' needs are being met, right, actively, and they feel like they're part of what's going on. So I think it all has a cumulative effect and the cascading effect to everything. So that's really good to hear. And it kind of funneled into some of another topic, because I wanted to put up a couple of things here in terms of like lower school. What's one thing that we're doing differently in lower school next year than we're doing this year, or something we're continuing that's working well?
Okay, yeah. One of the things we're definitely doing differently, parents have asked over the last several years, why do you have this crazy 6-day schedule? That's hard enough for an upper school kid to understand, right? Why isn't Tuesday just Tuesday and Thursday's just Thursday? Why do you have a day one and I can't keep track? And I don't know whether my kids got PE today. In the reality of it is scheduling's difficult, and we've just struggled to fit everything we need to do into a 5-day schedule and to meet all the MOE requirements for Arabic, Islamic, and Qatar history. But we put a brain team in, just a dream team that just worked on it and worked on it and worked on it until we solved it. So we will have a 5-day schedule. Sunday will be Sunday, Monday will be Monday, and it's gone are the days of worrying about that. I think that will help the kids. And, I'm really proud of what they accomplished, because when they first explained it to me, I was like, there's no way that's possible. What do you mean? You didn't take away special preparation time from the teachers. Teachers have more prep time, but teachers have more class time, and we have more time for our core subjects and more time for Arabic. Like, time is a constant. That had to come from somewhere, right? But looking at how they've adjusted things, there's a mild impact on some of the specials that will have a slightly reduced time and a handful of the specials, but the gains in terms of me, again, changing things to make sure we're addressing these kids we got to get them caught up in math and English and science and social studies. They've got a really cool schedule they put together. I'm really proud of the team. So that is something different. And then something I think we've done really well in the past is PD. And it's been hard to do that over the last 2 years, right? Well, when was the last time, Justin, I had all you guys in the gym, the whole staff?
I can't even remember, Mark. I really
That's
can't.
crazy, right? So we got all kinds of cool PDs planned for our teachers next year to impact all the stuff that we're talking about.
All right. That's good to know. Now let's transition into middle school and looking at some changes that maybe not happening this year, but happening next year, or some things that we're doing well in middle school. So I'll have you address that.
Similar. In fact, the fact that you're talking about middle school, one of our changes, we've always talked upper school and lower school. Mm-hmm. Over the last 2 years, we've started to use the term middle school, but we haven't really actually had a middle school per se. We have functioned like a school we have 2 principals. Mr. Jordan's in charge of K through 5, right? And Mr. Amon is in charge of 6 through 12, upper school, lower school. But next year, we're going to separate that out in upper school. So Mr. Amon will be the principal in charge 6 through 12, but he will predominantly oversee high school. And while Mr. Wessel and Mr. Jeff Wessel is still the assistant principal, he's going to take lead in our middle school program. We've created separate schedules. Their schedules have functioned inside of each other. They are now separated because really the needs of the kids are different. And we have dedicated staff. So we'll have a middle school team and a high school team. And the goal is to really focus on the needs of those middle school kids. It's a real transitional time. And so I'm really excited about that. We brought in grade level leads, which is something we haven't had. We're bringing back advisory, which is something we had in the past. And that's a good example of this. I worked in a lot of schools. Advisory is really popular in middle school and works well in middle school. Upper school teachers tend to hate it. And if the teachers don't buy into it and the kids don't buy into it, it's a waste of academic time. And so, 1 year we had advisory, but the higher level grades didn't like it. And so we got rid of it. But the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teachers have missed it. So by separating those out, high school's not going to have advisory. Middle school is. So I'm really excited about the changes they're making with middle school next year.
This is amazing news. My mom taught middle school in the U.S. Before she retired, and it really is a tough transition for the children. In the reading that I have done, they say that the transition from grade 5 to grade 6 is arguably the the most difficult transition for students in their time in American education. And
Yep.
so there's a lot of things going on with them personally, and then also with the transition from, being more independent. You're a little bit babied, you had a homeroom teacher, you had a contact. Now it's about, you being more independent, taking ownership and autonomy of your, academic schedule and courses. So yeah, I love what we're doing in middle school, and that's one of the best updates I think that we're doing, because I really felt like there needed to be a distinction. And it's funny that you guys are reading my mind. And I don't know much, but from what my mom has done as a teacher, but it really is great to see that, because I think the needs of high school are different than the needs of middle
for
school.
sure.
Yeah,
And we're big enough. We didn't do that previously because we were really small. We weren't big enough to separate it out, but we are now. We've grown a lot.
That's a good point, Mark. The size matters as well, and as you grow, you need to change things as well. So that's a really good point. Glad you pointed that out. And then let's go to high school. What's changing in high school? Status quo? Or there's
again, as we separate that out with the middle school and the high school, we can do some funky stuff there. They've got the wackiest, middle school and high school both have the wackiest schedule I have ever seen. So while I said on one hand, we've gone from this rotating weird 6-day schedule to make it nice and simple, easy to remember 5-day schedule, not in middle school and high school. We're going crazy. But they did it on purpose. There's always the discussion between a block schedule and a set period day schedule. So, your typical American, you have 7 periods in a day, 5 days a week, periods 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 40 to 45 minutes, same every day. And as a teacher, you get that. There's always the class, oh man, second period's the best, and I love those guys. And you have the kids who come in after lunch, and they've got the food digesting and their heads are down, and there's always, and so teachers love it in the rotating schedule. In the block schedule, you get larger class times. Classes meet less often a week, but for longer periods of time, and the time of the day they meet changes. And it also gives you more class time because you have less passing time between classes. And so what they've done in both is come up with a bit of a hybrid where things rotate through, but they've done it in a way that locks things down on Thursday. So it rotates through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But Thursday, we still have all 8 periods on Thursday. And that means that Sunday's always going to be Sunday, Monday's always going to be Monday, but it's different the way it rotates through. And it's a separate, they've really done those schedules in both to meet the needs of the kids. Upper school has a really long block period that they've built in on, I think it's Tuesday and Wednesday, where you're looking at like 90-minute classes. And the advantage to that is for our AP classes and for our art classes and for our music classes that have these really elaborate, our science classes, when you're doing a lab, you have a lot of setup and preparation time and tear down and fix things back up to get ready for the next class time. And it's really hard to do that in a 40 or 50-minute class. But it's not every day, because that's not perfect for education. So on Sunday and Monday, they then have a shorter window where they're 50-minute classes. So some pretty cool stuff. We're also bringing in National Honor Society next year. We've never had National Honor Society. For those who don't know what it is, it's another sort of academic gifted program. It literally is an honors society. It's a club. Kids have to apply to get into it. There are rigid requirements for how you get into National Honor Society that aren't just from us. They're from the National Honor Society itself. There's a lot of famous presidents in the United States that are former National Honor Society members. There's a lot of prestigious people. It looks really good on a college resume. It's not easy to get into, and you're going to have to work a little bit once you're in it. But it's just another cool thing that we're going to bring to GAAQ. So really excited about what they're doing next year. And again, continuing to develop the AP program, more APs. Just really excited about what we're doing.
Absolutely. The National Honor Society is great. Yeah, it's amazing. I know a couple of my friends were in the National Honor Society, and I'm telling you, when they see that designation on your college admissions, it means something. with APs and everything else involved, your sports and the community. It's a shoe-in. You're really a shoe-in for a school. So that's wonderful. Thanks for explaining that, Mark. Got a couple other subjects left. Not too much to go. All right, let me pick one. Let me see here. Okay, let's do parent association. We both can talk about this, but I'll let you lead on this first.
Yep.
So,
I think that all these things we've been talking about, and the parent association is a great example. Is just really that idea of that new normal, and we talk about the idea that the new normal doesn't have to be the same as the old normal, but it could be, right? So that idea of a start, stop, continue. If there are things that we didn't do really well in the past, well, we don't want to redo them that way, right? But if there are things we did really well in the past, we want to bring them back. And I think one of the things we are really lucky with over the last couple of, it's been hard this last couple of years. How do you have a PTA when they can't come on campus, and they can't do events, and they can't do all the things they've done in the past? But when we did have a functioning PTA, those guys were an asset to our school, and they really focused on UN Day, Qatar National Day, the Spring Fair, Teacher Appreciation Day, and then just being there to support us as a school when we needed it, and as a liaison for Justin and I to the rest of the parent community. And I'm excited to have that back again next year. I'm really excited, and I know Justin, you're a part of that PTA, and you can talk more about it than I can, and what this what it will look like. How are you going to build that again? I'm excited to see what you guys do.
So, I mean, there are changes, obviously, that Mark is thinking about and is doing as well. For academically and non-academically, right? For lower school, middle school, high school. I also have to think about changes as well, and to adapt to the current situation. And so, before the pandemic, we had more of a leadership structure with the PTA. And we really call it a parent association, not necessarily a PTA. PTA is more of an American term, whereas a parent-teacher association. But we want to bring the teachers back into this as well. So you have a couple of things now where you're looking into, instead of bringing it to a leadership aspect, we want to look at it in terms of a volunteer aspect. And so what does that mean? So if we have, Spring Fair, if we have Qatar National Day, if we have the UN Day, we want parents to sign up based on what event, they want to be a part of. Instead of compelling you to be a leader and coming into meetings every single week, because we understand that your schedule is fluid. You have a lot of commitments. You have things for your family, for your other children, things for yourself that you have to do during the week. So what we're looking at is saying, okay, if you want to be involved at United Nations Day, okay, well, let's look at who wants to be the point people from parent-wise for this event. Same thing for Qatar National Day. There's some people who really want to be involved with Qatar National Day. So let's have them run point on that event. What about social media? If you're someone who wants to help out with social media and help advance our social media, maybe you like being by a phone and on your tablet and other things like that. Let's talk about that. So I can really talk to parents based on their interests instead of compelling them to be leaders of the school if they don't want to be leaders, right? And so I think this is a better way, and I think this is the way that we're going to move forward with parent association involvement. And so in the beginning of the school year, don't be surprised to see a table from me for parents who are interested in the parent association, so we could talk about the model and to put your name down on what you're interested in. So, again, you don't have to be interested in all the events, but whatever event appeals to you or whatever action appeals to you, let's talk about it. And then I can have my committee already built in, and then we can run that event as we move forward. And only thing I will also say as well is that I'm not a parent or a head of the parents, right? I'm just a liaison to help you execute what you need to get executed for your events. So a lot of people think, oh, you're the head of the parent. No, I'm not the head of the parents. Parents are the head of themselves, right? I help execute things so they can move forward with their objectives, right? So I'll certainly be in those meetings, and I'll certainly be a help so you can advance your goals. But I'm really excited about the new model of things, and I think this is a good way to adapt instead of just having the old leadership model that we used to have. So how does that sound, Mr. Mark? That sounds all right?
That sounds like a great new normal.
Yeah, we're going to see how it works. And inshallah, everything works out well with it. All right. Okay. So I'm going to transition from the parent association. And the last thing, Mr. Mark, I want you to look into in terms of a long explanation would be re-enrollment. right? Because we're at re-enrollment at this time, and we did a video together about re-enrollment and the impact of the school and what that means. So can you reiterate some things and kind of take us to where we are right now with the re-enrollment process?
Yep. I'll wrap that refer a friend in there if that's okay too. It's really if you saw the video, what I'm saying is maybe redundant. So I will try and keep it somewhat quick. But this is the time of the year. It's past the time of the year. I've been planning for next year for a while. But for me to really plan, I need to know how many sections there are. Right? If I have 4 sections in grade 3, that's different than 3 sections in grade 3. And if I'm opening a 4th section, I should probably hire a teacher for that section. I should also probably make sure you have all your textbooks and all your resources and a smartboard and chairs and desks and all the other things that would go in that classroom. And we got 5 more weeks till the end of the school year. I need to be making those decisions a month ago. And re-enrollment is the cornerstone of how I make those decisions. Every year we'll let a few hundred new students into the school. But the bread and butter is you guys. It's the people who are returning. So if I don't have accurate re-enrollment numbers, I can't make accurate predictions. If I don't make accurate predictions, it impacts the quality of the education of the school. So for me, in a way, it's for me so I can plan, but my planning is for you so that you have the best education you possibly can. So re-enrollment is really in all of our best interests from that standpoint. And then I think the other one I mentioned is, we are at that point we're starting to get wait lists. We're not waitlisted at the moment, but you would have seen information coming out saying that we are waitlist. We're about to be waitlisted. And it's exactly the reason I just said. There's maximum 25 kids to a class. So if I'm looking at grade 3 and it's at 73, I got a decision to make. Do I let 2 more kids in and waitlist? Or do I hire a new teacher and take the gamble that I can let 27 kids in instead of 2? And this is the time of year I make that decision. So I got to decide if I'm waitlisting people or opening up sections. So there's really a couple of things you can do to help me out. Re-enroll, please, so I know if you're coming back. Refer a friend. I get people asking about discounts every year. Refer a friend is 4% off for every friend that you recommend that says yes and joins our school. So if you recommend 10 people who came, you could have 40% off your tuition, which would be the biggest discount we've ever offered. But I would happily do that. So refer a friend is like the best discount policy process possible for you and for us. So I strongly recommend that, because if that's happening, if enrollment is up and refer a friend is kicking and new people are coming in the door and I'm letting lots of new kids in, I'll happily open up that section. That's better for all of us. But if we start hitting July and that's not the case, then I got to start shutting things down. And when that happens, I have a problem, because then I have a wait list. And if you haven't paid re-enrollment, and it happens every year, this year I spent time putting out a video. I've spent 4 or 5 minutes boring you with my speech right now. Justin and his team are going to send SMSs and emails and phone calls. And if you wonder, like, man, why do they keep badgering me about re-enrollment? It's also because every year, and it has happened literally every year, and it's not just one. Last year, Justin, tell me if I'm wrong, I think it was 3, but it might have been more.
In terms of wait lists?
Yeah, the parent who comes back and says, hey, I'm here. And we say, oh, I don't have a spot for you.
More than 3.
It was more than 3. Yeah.
Way more
and they're tear jerkers for me. I have literally cried in some of those meetings because the parents either screaming at me or they're crying. And they're saying, but Mr. Mark, I didn't think you were serious. And I had this issue and I wasn't sure. And I didn't know if I should pay re-enrollment. And I've been in GEMS for 5 years and I don't want my kids. And I have 4 kids. And if you can't get my kid in 4th grade in, I won't put any of them in your school. And I say, I don't have any seats in grade 4. I physically don't. There is nowhere to put your kid. I'm sorry. I can't let you in. And there's nothing I can do about that. And it's heartbreaking. So If you haven't re-enrolled and you're thinking about coming back, please pay re-enrollment. If you're not sure, talk to us about why you're not sure. If there's an issue with your job and you pay re-enrollment and you have to leave the country, we will give you your re-enrollment money back. We will work with you, but please pay that re-enrollment fee. And if you hear anybody looking for a school, save yourself 4% in tuition. Make some referrals. You guys have always been our best ambassadors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing I would say too, Mark, just from a projection standpoint, the longer that we do not know your intentions in terms of coming back, a lot of the good teachers are already off the market. Not saying that they're not superstar teachers that are on the market, but it's harder to find them as we progress throughout the year. So the earlier that we know that you're coming back, the better that, okay, if we need to hire another teacher, they're probably going to be more quality, the earlier of the year in terms of the enrollment. When we get into, June, July, making those decisions to get another teacher, now we're looking at, okay, hopefully this person's the best one that we can hire that's available, because a lot of the good teachers are already snatched up. Again, not saying that they're not available, but highly unlikely sometimes, right? When we're looking through people who are interested in coming to Qatar, right? So this is another thing that may not be discussed a lot, but this happens a lot. And the other thing in terms of the wait list, we literally had 8 waiting lists out of 12 grades or 11 grades last year. And
Yep.
right now, to be very honest with you, very transparent. Everybody who knows me knows I'm honest. We are close in several grades right now with waiting lists. And I don't want to see the same thing happen again, because there are some really rough conversations that we can't help parents in. And I don't want to be in that situation again, just like Mr. Mark doesn't want to be in that situation as well. It's great this year to see some of those families return that couldn't come back last year. It's wonderful to see them. But they even tell us, man, I wish I didn't, make that decision, because this school was just a school that I fell back on. I didn't want to go here. I wanted to be here. And I feel like they lost a year, kind of what went on. But we're always, want to welcome you back. You're always a family member, no matter if you're, current or old, or, like, you're always a family member. But again, this re-enrollment thing is very serious and has implications on the quality of teacher, implications on how many students are in the classroom, and implications on hiring decisions and things in terms of our budget. It has a lot of implications. So we'll apologize in advance, for bothering you so much about it, but it's going to happen because we definitely need to know. And so this is why, in case you're wondering, why do we do what we do? These are some of the reasons. These are not even all the reasons, everyone. These are some of the reasons of what we do. So we won't beat that horse anymore, but at least you know a little bit more about an insight about why we are calling you and contacting you so much about that. All right. So there's one more subject, Mark, before we get to parent questions, because parents have been very patient. Students have been very patient as well. Okay. The last thing, Mark, is more of a fun, conversation. We talked about academically what we're doing differently and things like that. I just want to know from this prompt, what's the one thing that's going to make 2022, 2023 school year better than any year that you've been in this role? What's going to make that year one thing? What's going to make next year the best year since you've been ahead of school?
I think it's just, I said it's all about excitement for 2022, 23. I mean, it's just, you can feel the energy in the school. I am excited. I'm excited to bring, I can't say one thing. I want to give you the one thing, right? It's not one thing. It's a combination of all those things, having music concerts again, having UN Day, having spring fair, having ASAs. You and I had a conversation. I hope I can disclose it, but folks, Justin was asking me about my job, and I said, my job hasn't been as much fun during COVID. It's like you took all the fun stuff away from me and left me with all the difficult stuff, right? So maybe I can distill it down to one word. I think I'm going to have fun next year. That's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to having fun with the kids again. And I'm looking forward to them having fun. Learning is important, but learning can be fun. And I want that to happen again.
One thing I will say about Mr. Mark, some parents may know this because I said it before, but Mr. Mark is always an advocate of the best things that are happening in the school are outside of his office. So when COVID came, it took that joy for him to go visit classrooms. It took that joy for him to go talk to his teachers. It took that joy away from him speaking to you in the morning and fielding those impromptu meetings that, we would have with parents. It took that joy away from him. And I'm being honest, I saw it on him. It weighed on him heavily. So as more and more that we normalized, he became happier. Because
I'll tell you one thing I forgot. We talk about how great it is. I want the parent cafe back.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I first walked in this building when I was a new hire, I was like, man, it's 8:30 in the morning and there's 50 parents in the parent cafe. Right. What are they still doing here? They dropped their kids off an hour ago. Absolutely. Right? But I could go over and talk and hang out and find out what's up. And I miss that. I can't wait for you guys to be back on campus.
Absolutely. That's the thing too. So again, he's like, you may see little podiums around the school. That's literally his office, virtual office. He doesn't want to be in his office. I'm telling y'all, he loves being out there in the action where the kids are. So it did take a toll on him. So, but let's move forward. We have parent questions. We're now at the time where parents can, get their questions or comments addressed. So we do have a good amount of them. So I'll help you out, Mark, as much as I can with this. So, all right. So we had a family that came through. There used to be a family here. Said Ali used to be a student at gym. So we welcome Saima coming to the live stream. Really appreciate you here. Good to see you. Yes, definitely. So Mr. Reza said, is the latest MAP test result available?
It depends if you're talking middle school or lower school. Lower school is in the process of MAP testing now, so it's not finished. So it's definitely not available because they're not done. In upper school, they have completed their MAP tests. I don't think results are out yet simply because I haven't seen them, and I'm usually one of the first people to have eyes on them. That said, it should be soon. So I will look into that, and if it's upper school, we'll get those results to you ASAP. If it's lower school, we finish in 2 weeks, and it takes a week or so to get the results. So I would say we're about 3 weeks out in lower school.
Okay. I have another question from Mr. Syed Iskander. Is look ahead on how the World Cup will impact students' learning and assignments. So any thoughts about how the World Cup and how we're doing? I'm sure you have thoughts, but that question.
We have lots of thoughts. On one hand, I would say it's not going to impact it at all because of the way Qatar has asked us to do the school year. And so by the time the World Cup starts, we're on break. We do not have, I know 1 or 2 schools ask permission to get an online learning component during the World Cup. I think most were not approved. I have heard that 1 or 2 were. To be honest with you, when I heard other people were asking, I stuck with what Qatar wanted and went with their original plan of just wrapping my school year around it. It means we start earlier and we end later, but those were the mandatory dates given to me originally. And so I don't believe World Cup will really have much impact. If it has any impact from that aspect, I think it's going to bring more excitement to Qatar. And you always talk about, there's a thing called relevance in learning. Is what I'm teaching you relevant to what's going on in the world? And I mean, there's going to be so many different things we can do with the World Cup. You were talking field trips earlier, Justin. If you haven't been to if any of you out there haven't been to the new Olympic Sports Museum, it's pretty cool. And it's pretty interactive. And so I took my family there, and my wife, who teaches 3rd grade, was all excited, and her team has put in a proposal to take 3rd grade to the Olympic Sports Museum. But with that idea of, it's not just a fun field trip. What's the learning assignment? Well, there's all these cool Olympic figures that they're celebrating. And so the idea is that the kids then have to do a biography and a presentation on an Olympic figure. On an independent research project as part of that, which I think the World Cup's just going to bring a lot more of those relevant learning opportunities to our kids that they like. The negative side of it, it's kind of like we're going to have 2 summers because we're going to have 6 weeks off at Christmas. And so there is always the idea that there's a little bit of a learning dip with kids over the summer, and then it takes us 2 weeks to bring them back. I'll be honest with you, we're talking about that right now. What are we going to do to try and minimize that dip? And what are we going to do to try and pull them back quicker? Because we're going to experience that twice next year as opposed to once. But other than that, I think it's going to be pretty much status quo.
All right.
Good question, by the way.
Yeah, it is definitely. Another question about Usman. Does GAQ have or planning to hire a SEN teacher for lower school next school year?
That's the SST program that I was talking to you about. All of our SST teachers have a certification in either ESL or in SEN. Most have both. So if they were previously an ESL teacher, they get an additional certification in SEN. If they were previously a SEN teacher, so if I hire someone for the SST position, for example, so that I offered a position to a woman 2 weeks ago, she has experience in ELL and in SEN and has certifications in both. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always find that. It's not the easiest combination. But if I hire someone who had just an ELL qualification, I would say, look, you're close. If I am willing to support you, are you willing to go out and start an additional SEN certification to be part of that SST team? Part of that is, you notice we don't just say SEN, we say student support team. It's the idea that all kids need support. So if your kid doesn't necessarily have a SEN diagnosis, but they're 3 grade levels behind in any subject, that kid needs help. I'm not going to force them to go out and get a SEN diagnosis. I'm going to work with that kid as well. But all of our SEN kids get an IEP. We do have some kids who have SEN diagnoses in our school. We're okay with that. We are very careful about who we admit, with the idea that we don't want to let in someone whose needs are past our capability. And we want to make sure that we're providing the needed support for all of our current SEN kids before we let someone else in. So our SEN teachers have a caseload, and we watch those caseloads very carefully. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that answers that question.
I think so. All right. So next question here is there going to be an early payment discount? If yes, what are the details? Thanks.
Absolutely. If you pay full tuition early, that's 4% right there. So if you bring those other 10 kids in, you could have 44%.
You can theoretically earn back 100% of your child's tuition.
You could, in theory.
So I hope that answers your question there. Oh, look who we have here. Miss Tiffany, best leadership team in school in Doha. Thank you so much, Tiffany. We always love to see you in the comments. All right, come visit us.
I miss you, Tiffany. I miss you guys.
Definitely.
You too, Hassan, and all those little kiddos.
Oh yeah, they're growing for sure. I love the Parents Association at GAQ and how they really support the students and teachers. Incredible advocates for all and excellent resources to connect GAQ to the greater community. Parents can participate as much or as little as they want. Yes, there we go. So proof to what I was saying before. All right. So we have a question from Noor. Does the World Cup break affect the amount of curriculum AP students can learn before their exams in May? How are teachers planning to cover the units with less time in the year? This is an excellent question. Mark, this is all you. I have no input in this one.
The reality of it is it won't really impact that much. We are starting over 2 weeks earlier than we used to. And so at most, they're going to miss a week or 2 of actual curriculum, and there is no sort of required, believe it or not, my school in Switzerland I worked at only had 160 days because that's what was required by Swiss law. That's 20 days a year less. So there's no mandated amount of days for the AP curriculum. And I think some of those unlocking the schedule that we said, we've built in a few extra minutes, even though the day itself hasn't changed. We've built in some more additional teaching minutes into each day of the schedule, and those add up over time. So I don't really think it's gonna impact our AP classes at all. But very good question.
Yeah,
I like both of these questions, and I mean it. I get where you guys are at. Like, it's smart. You're looking forward. This is the first time we've ever experienced the World Cup. Everything's going to be different. What are we doing about that? I promise you, we're looking ahead with you, and we're making plans to compensate for all these things.
Definitely, this is a really good question. The next comment is more of a 3-part one, so I'm going to show all 3 from Ms. Nika. So it was 4,000 for the re-enrollment fee for more than one kid. Now you're taking 300 real for each and every student. What she meant was 3,000 real right now instead of 4,000. So she said, we just paid the spring fee, and sometimes companies have to pay the tuition fee. So it gets tough for parents with more than one sibling in the school. So I think the thing I will always tell parents is that when you look at the re-enrollment fee, it's more of a deposit for term one for next school year. So it's more of an advanced deposit. It's not that we're taking 3,000 and then we're also charging you term one, the full term one. So I want families to kind of know that educationally, that it's really just a deposit for term one, and it's going to help you pay for the rest of it when you start school in August. But yes, it is, we understand that it is a lot for, families who have 2, 3, 4 kids, but this is something that our organization has done for a while in terms of, at least knowing that someone's really coming back to the school because they really cemented that re-enrollment deposit, which is different from a registration fee, which is a one-time fee if you're a new student, right? That's totally different. This is always going to be a deposit for term one at Jim's education. So. All right. Hopefully that answers your question, Nika. Do you have anything for that, Mark?
I'll be cheeky about how I say the answer, maybe a little bit, but even though I do have the title CEO and I am in fact the chief executive officer, not all principals carry that title. Most of the time, that means I have a lot of autonomy that other heads of school wouldn't necessarily have, but I don't have complete autonomy. I still have bosses and line managers. And again, at the risk of being cheeky, this was not my decision. And it was not a decision I agreed with. And it is not a decision I can repeal. That said, ultimately, the point when I was in the debate was what Justin just said. We've had every year, we'd have people pay that $3,500 and then not show up. And then that's a seat that could have been given to somebody else that has potentially left and gone to another school. And it has an impact on the overall school culture. And it isn't an additional payment. It's a different time to make the payment. It's an earlier commitment of the payment, but it is a deposit. That is the argument that I lost, and that was the counter argument given to me. And there is, I have to admit, a lot of logic in that. So I hope that makes sense.
All right. Thank you for that, Anika. Next, I believe this is Fernando. Says, hi, any plan for IB curriculum?
I get asked that sometimes. The shortest answer is no. We are a completely American school. We follow the Common Core curriculum. It is aligned more appropriately with the AP curriculum, and the AP curriculum does everything the IB curriculum can do. I'm not saying that you won't find American curriculum schools out there that offer the IB program. They exist. You will even occasionally find schools that offer the full IB program, the IB World program, that claim to be an American curriculum. But that's a very different curriculum than what we do. So that's just not who we are. Again, if you've heard my spiel on IB versus AP, some people love Macs and some people love Dells and PCs. They can both do all the same stuff, and I don't want to get into a heated debate with people on either side of that one, right? It's like talking politics. But IB and AP, they do the same thing. And so if you switch to IB, we lose our AP status. We have to change everything with NEASC. We have to get completely reaccredited. And it changes the promise that we've made to all of our other parents. So I don't see us going in that direction. I hope if you have concerns, I can sell you on our AP program. Farragon, I would be happy to meet with you and tell you more about the AP and its strengths and I've taught both and I have administrated both. I love both. So I can give an honest sales pitch on both.
Between yourself, Mr. Wessel, and Mr. Jordan, it's a lot of IB American conversations that could happen between all three of you.
Yep.
That's the truth. So hopefully that answers the question there. The next question, I've been waiting to answer this, and welcome, Fawad. Re-enrollment. Heard GAAQ is planning a fee increase. Is it true?
It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
To be blunt, all schools are always planning a fee increase. I know the economy's tight, but I have been at this school for 6 years, as I've said. Our school's been in operation for 9 years. We have had I believe it was 2% fee increase approved once over the past 9 years. And my expenses increase with inflation, just like everything else in the world, by about 5 or 6% a year, every year. So it doesn't take a lot of math to figure out that I'm looking at about a 40% increase plus from when I started, and I've had a 2% increase in fees. And the only income I have is fees. And I gotta still pay those teachers' salaries and keep the lights on and pay the bills. Like my budget is tight. It's been really tight over the last couple of years. And I don't want to have to make poor educational choices based on limited budget. So every school is always looking for a fee increase. The reality of it is the MOE at this point doesn't seem to be granting them. I don't know when they will. I don't know when they'll accept fee increase applications again. I don't anticipate that schools will get fee increases. And if they do, I would anticipate that those fee increases will be very minimal. That's the most honest answer I know how to give on that one. I know that parents don't want a fee increase. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I think you're always honest, though. I think that's the best way you can put it. So yeah, definitely. The inflation is the big kicker. What you said there. I mean, every year is worse. Yeah. Another question.
Staff, I don't mind saying it. I have staff that have worked for me for 9 years who are backbreaking, loyal, amazing staff members who have never gotten a raise.
Yep.
And they deserve it.
Absolutely.
I'm not happy about that, right? But again, I've got that budget to work with, and I've got to get my budget approved. I'm trying to get my budget approved right now, and it's a tough process, right? The economy's hurting for everybody, and it's impacting us as well.
Absolutely. Another question from Fawad. High school students planning to volunteer during the World Cup, will their year be more demanding and stressful, and how would the school support them? So I don't know if you answered this already, but you can answer it now, I guess.
The only thing I can tell you is my daughter's one of them. So yeah, she's going to add more on her plate. If she adds more on her plate, that's not the school's fault, right? That's my fault as her dad, and that's her fault for volunteering for the World Cup. But you know what? That's a flipping amazing opportunity. She was a ball girl in the FIFA Cup, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed she's a ball girl in the World Cup. She was in a bucket load of those competitions as a ball girl. So I hope she can. I can say as a school we were pretty flexible. Again, I think of my own kid. She missed 6 days of school because when she was the ball girl for World Cup, she had to be there 8 hours before a match, and she wouldn't get home until 2 hours after a match. So the days of the matches, she'd be gone for 10, 12 hours. All of her teachers let her make her assignments up. There were no penalties. They worked with her. They supported her. I know we do that for all of our kids. Was it more stressful for her? Yes. Did she go out with her friends less? Yes. But we will support them. So I encourage all of our kids who can to volunteer. But I will acknowledge that it's going to put a little bit more on their plate. But we will work with them. There'll be forgiveness on our part and support on our part.
Definitely. And I think this would be a good time to also talk to Mr. Gregory, because as high school students have a required amount of volunteer hours to do before they graduate, and as we normalize again, I'm sure these hours can be translated into volunteer hours. So I think before the pandemic, we had 25 hours per year for high school students to do. Not sure if that's the same case, but that's a conversation with Mr. Gregory to see if these are translatable. So she could at least, for your daughter, Fawad, could at least be able to get close to 25 hours with this. All right. So hopefully that answers your question there. The next question that we have is, do you have support or programs for gifted students? I think we touched on this a little bit, Mark, but is there anything else you want to say to Anika about this?
Yeah, again, I think I'm blunt to a fault or honest to a fault, right? That I'd be lying if I said that's something I feel like we have done really well as a school. During the COVID pandemic, we've really trying to focus on those kids. As you said, Justin, there's a lot of kids that sitting in front of a computer, it just didn't work for them. If they were already behind and already struggling and didn't have those independent study skills, it's a lot of our kids who really suffered. And so that is not something we've done as well as I would like during this COVID pandemic, but that is also part of that intervention program. One of the mandates of the new student support team coordinator is to bring in a gifted and talented program. We've done better in upper school simply because we have those higher level, more challenging courses. It's natural and it's built into the school curriculum. There's still some things in upper school we can do better, but I'm very much looking forward to. I cannot promise you at this point exactly what that program will look like because we're in discussions about it as we speak. But it is one of the things that we've mandated that team to have. And so I'm excited about the ideas we're generating now. I don't want to speak too much about any of one of those ideas because I'm not sure which. Justin asked earlier about how many plans we have, right? We're gonna have a lot of plans, and I want to keep brainstorming until we come up with that best plan. But we will have. The shortest answer is we can do better, and we will do better next year.
And I am excited about the conversation around the gifted students and around the differentiation and support. I am excited about those conversations. I could say that at least. Two more questions here. We're almost done before my group. So, all right. So Fernando here, any plan, given the big field we have, to build a swimming pool, even if it's shared with Wellington? IB and swimming pool would be great to increase the attractiveness of our school. I like the way Fernando thinks, but I'll let Mark answer this question.
Yes, we will continue to have those plans. I was told when I'd gotten here that parents were told there was going to be a pool. I think we spoke a little prematurely. I was not country lead at that point. It was Mr. Jonathan Day next door at WSQ, a really good friend and somebody I respect. But he showed me images of the back lot behind the school. And the plan was to buy that lot and build a theater and a track and a pool, which would have been amazing. And we were in the process. We had offers out. We were in the process of finalizing a deal when the blockade hit. If you guys all remember the good old blockade pre-COVID, and all our money comes from Dubai. So that got cut off. And it was on hold for a while, and then COVID hit. And as we just talked about, money is money. My budget's tight right now. I have a unique plan. Since we can't do that, I did look at what you talked about. I did look at having that field area moved. And what I would do if I can get it at some point, I would actually not mess with the fields. I'd take Wellington's ball courts and I would tear those out, put a pool there, and then put the ball courts on the roof on top of the pool. So no physical space is lost. It's just building up. If I can't build out, let's build up. But that's money, right? So if I'm going to get money, I need that fee increase that we don't want. I need those refer a friends. I need more students. I need to fix my budget. And once that's done, I'm hoping I can get that pool. It's definitely it's one of my goals for our school, but I need some things to happen for that to happen. But I love where your head's at.
Most definitely. And if you don't know about Mr. Mark, the one thing I would tell you, he's very resourceful. I will tell you that. This man has ideas that I can't even think about, but he's very resourceful. One last question. Yeah. One last question, Mr. Mark. So says, can you elaborate on the early payment discount? Did I just hear that payment comes with 4% discount? Early payment? Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I could tackle that. Yes. If you pay the whole year in advance, there's a 4% discount. Correct. Simple as that. So if you go to Mr. Anton and you make that payment, if you do it from bank transfer, if you do it from the gym's portal app, things like that, we will see that and we will grant you that 4% discount as a thank you. Every 4% discount that we do is a thank you to our families. So this is a thank you for paying early. The 4% discount for referring a friend to our school is a thank you for being a great word of mouth advertisement. And so these are things that we just build in, and that's our way of saying thank you so much. Please do that again if you would like. And so, yes, this is very true. 4% discount paying the whole year in advance. That will be given to you. All right. I think there's a certain day that's a deadline, but I don't know that date. That's the deadline to make that payment. I'm pretty sure before the first day of school. I'm pretty sure either first day or before the first day to make that early payment.
But if you contact finance, they'll have all that information, and it's not a difficult process. It's easy as long as you meet that deadline. It's like you said, you make your payment early.
Yep,
you're good to go.
Absolutely. And I saved the last comment for you here, Mr. Mark. So this is Tiffany. Mr. Mark is the first person to help a student tie their shoes in front of the hall or ask them about their upcoming presentation. Personable, approachable, kind, and always puts the students first. I think I actually have a picture of you helping a student tie their shoes. I'm pretty sure. And I also have a picture of you outside of the school where the benches are talking to students about their day. And you were going into some type of conversation. You had the hands moving. There was like 4 kids there. And you were talking about something, but I'm sure I was around when I took that picture as well. So this is very true. This did happen. This always happens. A little bit muted during COVID, but I think it's coming back where you're going to see all the principals and leadership and our teachers, everyone outside greeting you. We missed that, and we're back to doing that. Thank you, Tiffany, for that beautiful comment. Mr. Mark, we're done. I don't see any other comments. If you have any other ones, please email me, parents, students. But I think we answered as much as we could. How do you feel, Mr. Mark, after answering all those questions?
I feel a little sheepish after the last comment. Thank you, Tiffany. And just so you know, I'm still tying Adham's shoes, Tiffany. I'm still tying his shoes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That kid is going to learn to tie his shoes before he leaves my school, if it kills me.
I think at this point he enjoys it. So
I think he does too.
Yeah, I think at this point. It's customary now. You've been doing it for so long, you got to do it. All right, parents.
Thanks, guys, and I really appreciate anybody who listened to us. I appreciate your time. It means
absolutely. And Mr. Mark, anything else we need to tell them about this week or what's coming up? We talked about the graduation. Is anything else? I don't think there's anything else, right? Can't remember.
I'm sure there are so many things going on this week that we should tell them.
Yeah,
I can't. I need like 20 minutes to prepare for that one. I gotta go
check out the newsletter, please.
Yep.
One-stop shop for everything. That's how I end the show. Thank you so much. Ma salama, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.